and welcome to Chapter Select, the podcast that's like a book club but for video games. I'm Jens, and I am of course joined by my good friend and co-host Randy Isbell.
Hello, hello.
Today's episode is part 1 of 2 of our Ghost of Tsushima coverage. So Randy, you had some doubts in going in with this game, didn't you?
A little bit, just as far as... So I have a history with open world games that just continues to not be solved, where I get so excited for these games, and then I get into them, and then I just completely fall off. So I'm like, all right, at least now I have you that will hold me accountable and make sure I finish this thing, which
keep pushing it.
And it gives me motivation to. But I will say, I don't think I've needed that much motivation. The game's pretty fun.
Okay. Did you have how much of the coverage did you read about it beforehand as to what it is?
Not a ton. I think I was way more focused on Last of Us Part 2. I've seen trailers and stuff. But honestly, as far as like coverage, as far as the game goes, they were pretty quiet about it from what I saw.
Yeah, I had the same impression. All I really knew about it going in was that this was an open world samurai game and that it was taking inspiration from Kurosawa. That was kind of the big talking point for Sucker Punch, right? They kept talking about it, how like we love these Kurosawa movies. We wanted to do something that was in that vein, tonally and visually, and that's kind of the main thing that stuck with me. And I think it set maybe unrealistic expectations for me as to what this game actually is, because it turns out to be just kind of a standard open world game, pretty much in the vein of what Assassin's Creed was like in the 360 era.
Yeah.
With some quality of life improvements and an incredible visual presentation.
Yeah, honestly, I like it. Again, I'm not huge into open world games. I played some of the Assassin's Creed games and stuff. But yeah, you're exactly right. It feels like it's an Assassin's Creed game in a different style. And it doesn't really bring too much brand new to the table. But man, the things that they do, especially in like the combat and stuff, they do really, really well.
There are things that are well done. I totally agree with you there. I'd kind of stopped playing these kinds of games. I had burned out on them, and it's I played a lot of those kind of Assassin's Creed games over the last couple of how it's been like a decade now, right? It's been a long time, and there've been a lot of them, and of course all the variants, Shadow of Mordor, stuff like that. So I kind of felt I was at the point where I said, like, no more open world games of this kind, no more Ubisoft, no more kind of cloning the same 5 or 6 different objective types across a giant map with a checklist of things to do. Take all the forts, climb all the things, collect all the scrolls or whatever. Like, no more of this.
And this is exactly what this game is.
And this is exactly what this game is. So... But I don't want to, I realize I'm coming off a little negatively. Let's talk about the stuff that is improved from similar games. I've got a little list here, actually, of things that I think are quality of life improvements. Firstly, I like the HUD-less view.
Yes, absolutely.
The gusts of wind for wayfinding. So the way that wayfinding works is it's the way that you would expect. You have a map, you set markers that show you where to go. If there is an undiscovered objective or something, a question mark on the map, you can mark that and it'll lead you right to there. But rather than drawing a line or putting a little marker on your horizon or anything, it basically just has in typical Sucker Punch fashion, you swipe the touchpad and a gust of wind appears and blows in the direction that you're supposed to ride. And it's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I've used the touchpad more in this game than I have the entire time on PlayStation 4. You're just sitting there swiping up all the time.
The last game where I used the touchpad this much, Infamous Second Son.
God, it's been so long since I played that game, I forget what we did that for. Or that was was it the spray? No, the spray can thing was like
you shake.
You turn it on the side. I forget what you do with the touchput on that game. It's been too long.
I also don't remember, but there is something map wayfinding related with it. I remember touching it a lot. Unless this is like a Mandela affecting myself, and that didn't actually happen.
No, we'll bring it up in part 2 if you were wrong.
It feels like a very Sucker Punch kind of thing.
I will say there are times in this game where the wind just pisses me off. Because it'll just go, no, you don't get the wind right now. Like, I know it's around here somewhere. Come on.
Oh, you're talking about when you're like in a base and you've got to find, one of those banners.
Well, luckily with the banners, you can switch your outfit to
Travelers.
The Travelers one, and it'll vibrate your controller. But there's one type of collectible on here. It's the I'm gonna blank. Looking at your thing, I think it's the shrines.
Yeah,
because those are just the ones that give you like cosmetic stuff, right?
So the pillars give you cosmetic stuff for your sword.
That's what it is. It's the pillars of honor.
The pillars will appear on your map.
Like I hunted for one that I don't think exists on the first area where the wind. It was like the wind that kept sending me back to this lighthouse, which I'd already taken care of, and it just said it is the lighthouse. So I searched all around this lighthouse for a half hour, nothing. So I'm like, screw it. And then today I was playing it because I was cleaning up Act 1, so I was ready to talk about it. And again, it was like, it's around here. And it just kept changing direction on me. Like, it's not here at all. What do you, wind? But that's the only time is when I'm searching for those.
So the interesting thing is my way of exploring basically was put on the traveler's outfit and just kind of ride around, zigzag across the map looking for those little question marks and talking to anybody. Because there's also the rumor system, so you'll find people that you can talk to,
right,
and they'll tell you, I've heard there's a fort down in this area, or, there's an old lady, so it'll give you all, sitting alone in the woods and something's up with her, you might want to talk to her. So, and that'll then say rumored location added and put a little marker on your map that you can go to. So you can kind of, and the same thing when you save peasants, when you'll come across like random bands of Mongols on the road, with like a prisoner. And if you save that prisoner will also give you like a location until they run out of locations to give you, and then they just start giving you items.
Right.
But there's if you just kind of walk around the world and do random encounters and stuff and talk to people in survivors camps, most of the markers are going to get revealed to you. And then whenever you clear a fort or something or shrine, it'll also reveal like markers in the immediate vicinity. So it just kind of gradually opens the map up to you in a way that I like. I really like the fog of war, actually, that this game has.
Clearing out a base or something is the most satisfying. To once you're done, you just open the map and watch it go poof, and you get a big giant circle revealed for the fog of war. And usually there's 3 or 4 question marks that I had missed around that area, and it's like, all right, now I can do those. And yeah, I mean, I do it a little different than you again, because I try not to. Because if I did it like you, it would take me 8 years because I just start just checking everything. So I'm like, all right, so I'm going to go from point A to point B. Here's a side mission over here. And again, being the traveler's thing. And I'll just go in a straight line right to it. And so there's birds in this game that golden birds or yellow birds or whatever that'll come down. And then all of a sudden, like, hold on. If you come this direction, there's a collectible or a side mission or something. Or I don't know how many fox dens I ran into on accident.
Lots of them.
There's so many of them.
50 fox dens.
So that was basically it. It's like, I'm going from point A to point B, and whatever tries to distract me, I'm going to allow it to distract me.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's a sane way of playing this game, for sure. As far as like the wind not leading you where you need to go, have you put any points into the exploration skills?
I have all of them now. So it's just, again, it's just, I don't know if it was just something goofy with that one type.
Okay.
That it keeps trying to say that it's only happened twice in the dozens of hours I put into the game, but it's only that one type, and it's the only time I'm like, what is happening here?
You laugh. That was the absolute last thing I put points into in the entire game.
Oh, I figured, and I was going to too, but then I can't help myself.
Right. Like at first I did all the techniques, and then I did all the weapons, and that's kind of the order. I was just kind of filling it out.
I don't want to jump too far, but I love the fact that there is so much to unlock as far as skills and stuff, and they're all different. So it really opens that game up to different play styles.
And you get everything. If you do all the content, you will unlock everything long before the finale of the game. So that's also nice. In fact, the whole game is pretty completable. Like it took me maybe about 40 hours, 50 hours, something like that. But they make almost all of the tails are marked. There are 2 tails that you kind of have to find in the world. And there are some secret collectibles that they don't really message to you, which are the hidden shrines. I'm sure you've probably seen one of them at least.
Oh yeah, I've done a few.
Okay. So yeah, just as a hint, you'll see when you do your first, there are the mystic tales, which are tales that give you equipment or techniques. When you do your first of those at that grave of the I forget who it is. I think it's the archer. Anyway, that's the first of them, and you'll see a little sign with a bowing man on it, and then you know, okay, whenever I see that sign, I got to bow in front of it.
It's actually the one I missed. Right before we were recording, I was cleaning up Act 1, and that's the thing I'm in the middle of right now.
Right. So yeah, so just
that up.
Pro tip, if you're playing this game, take a note of that so you don't have to go back and go to a guide and find those, because they're pretty obvious if you just know to look for them. In fact, for like half the game, I was like, what the hell is this? I didn't realize that you could bow in front of them. So lesson learned there. But yeah, I like the Fog of War a lot compared to something like Assassin's Creed, where Assassin's Creed, you do one of those towers and it just goes, it also goes poof, but it, opens up like a fourth of the area that you're in. It's like a huge area with 100 new icons gets revealed. Yes. And that does not happen here. Like here, it's like 2 or 3 new things. Every time you do something, you find 2 or 3 new things along the way. And that really works well for me. It's a good balance. Yeah.
At the beginning of this year, when everything started getting delayed and stuff, I actually was like, this is a perfect time for me to finally play Witcher 3. It's like, I have a couple months before Final Fantasy VII Remake comes out, and I'm going to give it a shot. And it's exactly the same thing that happens. You get to that first area, and it's like, here's 80 check marks. Or question marks. I'm like, I'm never going to leave this area for the rest of my life. So I like that, like you said, it slowly reveals things as you go along. It's not just, here's everything to do in Act 1, go.
Yep. So I think that's really good. And we've talked about the Traveler's Armor. The Traveler's Armor is a great way, I feel, of dealing with collectibles, because at least you're not going to overlook them. It doesn't really help you zero in on them all that well. But at least, like, when you're within 30 feet of one, your controller will start vibrating when you've got this particular armor set on. And you'll just know, okay, I'm going to have to spend the next 10 minutes searching this stupid Mongol camp for some Mongol artifacts, so that I don't miss them. But you're not going to just walk past them. At least you're going to know that they're around.
Yes.
So that's always helpful. Unless you're not wearing the Traveler's Armor, which also, this brings me to one of my biggest pet peeves, which is armor switching. So your armor sets are extremely situational, and as a result, you kind of find yourself just having to go into the menu and switching your armor on the fly all the time. Like, I walk up to a standoff and I get the little icon that says standoff. Press D up on the D-pad to start a standoff. First, I have to press start, go into the menu, put on the armor that gives me the standoff benefits, and then switch back to Travelers after the standoff is over. Like each armor is like, this is the stealth armor, this is the exploration armor, this is the combat armor, this is the standoff armor, and this is the archery armor. And you kind of need all of them in different situations, or at least most of them. And it's just so annoying to me that the game is making me just let me upgrade one armor and change out the stats or something slot by slot or something like that. These armor sets where I'm just constantly like, this armor set never becomes obsolete. You're always going to have to switch back to it.
Yeah, I think so far I've just stuck to Travelers, and then it was the combat armor I'd switch to during the bigger stuff. But now that I've gotten that standoff armor, I seem to just switch to that. And difficulty-wise,
I wore the most. Yeah.
Yeah, difficulty-wise, the game's not too terrible. I guess I'm not playing it. I'm playing on normal, not hard. But
yep, same.
But it's never too over the top where you really feel like you need that extra advantage. But it's fun to switch and try different things too.
Yeah. I mean, it is fun to try different things, but eventually I just want to get into a groove. I feel it breaks up the pacing of the game in an annoying way.
Yeah.
To me. I feel similarly about stances, but we'll get to that when we talk about the combat.
Yeah, it just shows you how much of a gamey game this is. Where if you take it in a practical sense, can you imagine that exact same situation? You go up to a camp and you're ready for a standoff, and you go, wait, hold on. Let me change my shirt. Hold on. Guys, don't look, please.
Yeah. It'd be very funny. You could not imagine a mechanic. Like, imagine in Last of Us if you were just... I guess you can change out equipment by just doing it in the menu in the middle of battle. You can do that. So I guess it's just... You make allowances for things like that. But it is silly to imagine If this were real life, or if this were trying to be like realistically,
I'm
like
trying to.
even something like Red Dead would never let you do that, right? Because
Right.
Red Dead is trying to be
Super serious.
super serious. Well, to this game though is super serious as well. Like it's not like there's a jokey or jovial game in any way, shape, or form. It is po-faced and earnest and as straightforward as they come.
Yeah, but again, what I appreciate about it is it still remembers that it's a game, and it allows for that kind of stuff. I'm trying to remember. There's a YouTube comedy group out there that always makes fun of video game tropes.
Mega 64?
I don't think it's them. It might be a part of them. I'm trying to remember, but they usually it's
Loading
like
Ready Run?
like MMOs. They'll make fun of, and they did a lot of PUBG stuff. I think it's a British group that I watch, but Mega 64 does them too. But I like to see them do some of the things that they do in here that wouldn't make sense in real life, but it works pretty well in the game.
Right. So those are improvements. Oh, and the horse. The horse feels really good, and it can't die, or at least, well, it can't die randomly, and it doesn't it doesn't have a stamina meter, so that's all awesome. The horse is really convenient, and it gets summoned instantly when you press the horsey button.
Yeah, and it just will show up right behind you. It's not like you have to wait for it.
You jump right on it.
Yeah, and I do like that it's just one quick swipe of, again, the touchpad. They do such a great job with that touchpad. And all of a sudden he's there and let's go.
Yep. Now, as far as actual innovations go, things that are new, there's two things that come to my mind. Firstly, the photo mode. Have you used the photo mode?
Well, I don't know if that's new, but I mean...
Well, okay, so games have photo modes, obviously.
Yeah, a lot of Sony games have that stuff.
Zelda had a good photo mode, Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
But did it let you set tracking points for the camera so that you can make smooth tracking shots and export them?
I honestly, I haven't messed around with it. I messed with it once, I think just to get the trophy real quick. But I love all the added filters and stuff they have in that thing.
The filters are cool.
Messing around with it.
But this is like the first one I've seen that like lets you do cinematography.
Mm-hmm.
Like it lets you like set up your camera movement and do a cool tracking shot through the still life and stuff.
It just shows that it knows exactly what this game is so strong about, and that's the visuals. So it's like, we're going to do everything to show off these visuals to you. And
it's good marketing, right? Because this is like things that you want people to share. Like, look at how beautiful this game is. Look at this cool little movie I made out of photo mode clips.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's pretty awesome and smart. As I said, it's the best photo mode I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if somebody, write us or add us on Twitter if you can think of a better one, but it's genuinely impressive to me. And then the other one, much more important, of course, to this game are the standoffs, which we've already mentioned some, but I don't think we've explained how they work.
It's what am I thinking? It's just a timing mini game, basically, where I like that now that I'm into Act 2, that the challenge of them have definitely ramped up. It's like the first time I ever failed one actually was in Act 2. And it's basically you and another guy are just standing there, and I like how they like pump fake you a couple times.
Yeah, they fake you out. Or they try to anyway.
Mm-hmm. And I like that you can get the abilities and stuff where then you can start chaining kills after that, which, I mean, would definitely work out. You kill one and another one's like, no, it's my turn. And then you have to hit triangle again.
Yep, and thankfully the chain kills are much easier. Mm-hmm. Like the initial kill has this tricky timing where it's kind of like a game of chicken almost, where you're just waiting until the absolute last moment, where it's like who strikes last without, being hit first wins or something. So you kind of just got to wait to the last moment while your opponent is swinging and then let go of the button and then you do the kill. And you're right, the timings do change significantly in Act 2. Once you fight those, even like the later Mongol enemies, even the heavier ones are much faster, or they just have different timings that you've got to get accustomed to based on who you're fighting. But then the follow-up hits are really easy. Like as long as you kind of get them when they're just getting close to you, you're good, and you can streak them really easy.
It definitely slows down a little bit, and it just makes you feel like a badass. That's awesome. Every time I do it.
Dude, once you get to the point where you can kill 5 dudes in a row, and you can basically just, whenever you come across one of those random road events, and it's 5 guys and a prisoner, you can just do a standoff and just wipe them all out, talk to the prisoner, the whole encounter is like 20 seconons.
That's great. And so let's get into that combat real quick, because I know that they attempted to do a thing here where you could stealth it, and sneak around and stuff, or you can just go in swinging a sword. And honestly, I found it I'm usually a stealth game person. Metal Gear
Mhm.
Solid, that's my thing. For this game, however, I had so much fun just going, bring it. I just, it was like, there'd be a camp out there and it's like, okay, let's sneak around here. I'm like, nope, I'm just going to run up, hit the standoff button, kill people, run in, throw a sticky bomb at somebody and just go to town. Let's go.
Yeah, it was still frustrating to me from a story standpoint, just because these were like such obvious, especially that first fort that you take on pretty much in the opening levels with Yuna.
Mm-hmm.
It just felt so much like this is a fort that you're supposed to sneak into and murder everybody. But instead, you just walk up to the door and yell, "Come at me, bro!" And he's it's very silly. Jin's refusal to embrace stealth early on in this game. I realized that that's the big arc of the game, is him embracing, less honorable tactics. And can he square this with his conscience and with his family?
Yeah.
And that is the big conflict, really, is also, how this destroys your relationship with your uncle. The fact that your uncle, doesn't want you to do this because, this is a fantasy version of Japan where apparently samurais never use stealth. Nobody ever uses pragmatic tactics. Samurai are noble defenders of the people and nothing else. It's, I don't really know how I feel about that aspect of it. I guess, again, this goes back to them setting an expectation that, like, this was going to be like a Kurosawa film, and Kurosawa films are not like this at all,
Yeah, I think that worked in my favor because I've never seen any of those. But as far as the story goes, at least early on in this game, especially coming off of a game like Last of Us Part 2, it's been so hard to get into. Like, I think the gameplay has been so fantastic and so great, though it is starting to get very samey, which, of course, is going to happen in open world games because I swear open world games would rather tout that they have a 50-hour game instead of this super tight package of a fantastic game. But that's a whole other story. But as far as the story goes, I don't know if there's even a single character I absolutely love this person. The main character feels bland to me.
Well, he's a paragon. He's just the do-gooder who does everything for the good of the people and is incredibly concerned with being a good person and being honorable. And that's kind of all that he is. And he's always going to make the paragon choice of everything. And that's just kind of him. And he's likable enough. He's charismatic enough. But yeah, there's just not that much to him. He's kind of like he's kind of a Kazuma Kiryu without the humor. Like if Kazuma Kiryu from the Yakuza games was just the driest, most humorless guy and had no wacky interests or, kind of bemused reactions to things and was just there to, I must protect.
Not to spoil things for our podcast, but am I going to meet this guy in a couple weeks?
No, yeah. Well, you might. He might have a cameo.
Okay.
But no, we're deliberately, our next game is going to be Judgment, it looks like. And we're deliberately going into the Yakuza series with the spin-off title that doesn't require any knowledge of mainline games. So you might see him in a cameo, but he's not, there's nothing you need to know. That game is pretty standalone from everything I've seen.
So what did you think of the combat in this game?
So this is another thing. Again, I blame myself. I don't blame this game. I blame myself for just going, well, it's a samurai game. Of course I'm going to play the samurai game. And not looking into it any further than that. Because it really is kind of the old Assassin's Creed mechanics. My understanding, and I haven't played new Assassin's Creed, I haven't played Origins or Odyssey, which I'm told are a little bit more Souls-like, that they were inspired by Souls-type games. Haven't played those, but this is really more like old Assassin's Creed, like up until about Syndicate. You get context clues for blocking, parrying, dodging, what your timing should be. When you counter successfully, you get an opening to strike back. You can spam heavy attacks to break guard. You can follow up with light attacks to take them down. That's kind of your core combat. The only thing that they've really added to that is stances. And stances is one of those things that theoretically seems awesome. Like my first thought immediately was, oh, it's like Neo. Because Neo has like the low stance, the mid stance, and the high stance. And you're supposed to toggle between them as you play. But the thing with the stances in Neo, firstly, they completely have different effects based on what weapon you're wielding, which this game doesn't do, because this game just has the one primary, the katana. But they're just kind of different strikes. You're like striking from below or striking from above or doing like a little whirlwind kind of, around in a 360-degree circle kind of strike, those kind of things. And these stances just have extremely particular uses. So over the course of the game, you're introduced to swordsmen, introduced to shieldmen, spearmen, and brutes. Those are kind of your main enemy types. And each stance, stone, water, wind, and moon, are good against one of these. So that just, to me, I feel like I have to play in a horses for courses way, where I'm just kind of in combat every few seconds. I have to press the right trigger, which slows down the combat. The game goes into kind of slow-mo mode while you're in the menu. I have to change stances. So I have the correct stance for whichever guy I'm currently facing. Then I'm going to mash heavy attack some, and so on and so forth. And then I'm going to have to switch stances again when I face the next guy. And it's very like, you use stone stance on swordsman, you use water stance on shieldman, wind stance on spearman, moon stance on brutes. And if you're not doing that, the game will actually complain to you.
Thank you. I was just going to bring that up. I spent 5 minutes trying to figure out how to turn that off.
Did you figure it out? I never turned it off.
And you cannot turn it off.
Eventually, I just got to, I'm just going to have to play the way that this game wants me to play, because if I try to use moon stance against swordsmen and I get blocked a few times, the game is just going to stop and tell me, remember, stone stance is effective against swordmen.
Because there for a while, I would leave it in wind stance, because it works really good with spearmen. I found it worked pretty good with the shieldmen. And then with the swordsmen, it's like, I don't really need to break their shield. I counter them well enough. So I was just doing that.
It's not good against the ones with two swords. They can kind of block it fairly easily.
And then the game would go,
it doesn't really matter. Sorry.
It was just, it just drove me. I was like, I get it. I understand you want me to switch and stuff, but I don't want to switch at the moment. I'm getting really tired of hitting R2, because R2 does everything in this game.
Yep.
And I just wanted to do my thing. So I think that was like my big sticky point with it, was where the game would like get mad at you and slow everything down until you finally switch to the stance they want you to be in. But to me, I mean, it is, again, it's getting very samey, because it is just those four, and it's just put blue on blue and move on. And as you start unlocking some of your abilities, it makes you feel even stronger, and you can get through them a little bit faster. But it is the same repetitive combat over and over.
It's a thing that, like, it seems like it would add depth, but really it just adds overhead. It just adds, like, okay, I now have the extra step of having to switch stances before every other enemy, as opposed to just being able to mash my way through it or whatever. But it doesn't actually make it harder. Like, this game actually does not really have a difficulty curve in my mind.
No.
I fully admit I finished it. I've platinumed it. So I'm a little ahead of you, but I really, having just played through it, I feel that, like, at no point did it get more difficult. Like, you fight harder enemies, but you also get better tools. So it all just kind of levels out, and the combat really is the same difficulty the whole way through. And, It just feels like it adds more and more steps, and because it's so prescriptive, it's not really, it just comes down to doing what the game wants you to.
Mm-hmm. And actually, I think I'll disagree with you. I think there is a difficulty curve. It just goes the opposite way. It just gets easier. It gets easier.
Yeah, I mean, that is a decent argument. I felt, I mean, there are some fights that might still, actually no, because there are certain melee finishers, once you unlock them later in the game, even duels become trivial. Like, you just do, like, I'm just going to do the moon slash 5 times in a row, and this guy's dead.
Right.
So you're right. It might be that it's getting easier, but it really just, it doesn't feel like this stuff makes the combat more interesting. It just makes it more involved. And this is a similar, people will think I'm crazy that I don't really like the Batman Arkham Asylum or the Assassin's Creed style of combat design all that much. Or even Spider-Man, which is a game that I really loved, but also has that style of combat. It's really something I tolerate more because it's just so prescriptive. Like, it doesn't give you the freedom, something like Dark Souls gives me, or Bayonetta gives me the freedom to just kind of play it. Here's an insane amount of crazy, awesome tools, and figure out how to use it and how you like to use them and what feels good to you. You know, it gives you that flexibility. Whereas here, it's very much, no, this is combat. It's like a little rhythm game. Here's how you do it. Here are the timings. Better memorize these timings. Better use the right stance on the right guy. Do what we tell you. And that is the combat in this game.
I enjoy that kind of combat myself, but you're 100% right that it's basically, like you said, it's a rhythm game. And if you stay in rhythm, you're going to look like a complete badass. And if you get out of rhythm, somebody's going to hit you and you're going to have to reset. And that's exactly what this game does with, again, the tweak of the stances and stuff. And it's those damn archers that always are the ones that get me out of out of rhythm. So basically, my strategy at any time is if I go in there sword swinging and not try to pick people off with my own bow and arrow, my main thing is there's an archer. I'm running right to you. You're dead. Okay, now let's get rid of everybody else.
Can you maintain a good kill streak without taking damage?
If I get rid of the archers, I can. But the archers are really good at being in a rhythm, kill 6 or 7 straight. There's something we'll talk about in 2 weeks that I just unlocked.
Yep.
That is a little bit later than where we're trying to do our cutoff, even though we're now both past it. That does something really cool if you can kind of string those together. And I'm pretty good as long as I don't have an archer screwed up in the middle.
All right, I've got one more combat complaint.
Yes.
Where's my lock on? Let me lock onto enemies. Please. Like, let me press R3 and put a little dot over an enemy's head and then wiggle the right stick to select different targets. Because this game, like, once per encounter at least, the game decides, hey, you should not be fighting the guy that you're currently fighting. You should be fighting the archer 50 feet away from you up on a ledge. And the camera is going to face that way, with your character facing the camera and walking backwards because you're trying to move in a totally different direction.
Oh, it drives me absolutely nuts. And I will say, as we're recording this, my system has got an update for Ghost of Tsushima that maybe fixed it, or at least doesn't auto. I doubt they added
I wouldn't expect them to change the mechanics.
But hopefully they got rid of the auto thing that just would drive me nuts.
Yeah, the idea, I think, is that you just kind of point the stick in the direction of whoever you want to fight, and then that is who it locks onto. But it just, all too often, it just decides, no, I'm going to lock on to this dude. Sometimes it's helpful, because sometimes, you'll find yourself at the end of a camp that you're supposed to clear, and there's like one last guy that you can't find that you need to kill to finish the camp, and the only way to figure out where he is to let the camera auto-target in his general direction, and then you at least know where to walk.
I do like that if you're in that situation for a while, you can finally just hit up on the D-pad and just yell.
Yeah, eventually.
Like, come on out, let's
come
go.
To me.
Just please. Also with the stealth thing, if you click down on the touchpad, it kind of does that see-through walls kind of deal. I think I'm with you how you felt with The Last of Us Part 2. I wish that wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool if you can see them, highlight them or whatever, but I wish you couldn't see through the walls with it. Like, the whole point is your character is very reluctant to do the stealth situation and all of that, but he is super good at it. Being able to mark 7 guys that you can't see anybody of, and there's this guy on the 3rd floor. So it's like, to me, it's like I get the point of it. It's essential to sneak around a little bit more, but
in certain areas, I just don't think you'd be able to get around it. It seems essential to do it, and especially there's big ones. There's fort missions where it basically says, oh, you got to free all 3 of these hostages and collect a bunch of banners, and it's across a large area. So sometimes I'm just like, okay, I just freed a hostage. Where's the next hostage? And I look around and there's nothing forward, anywhere within sight. And then I see way off on the horizon behind a hill, there are 3 little red dots. And I know, I can hear. I can hear the guys like a half a mile away from me on that hill. And if I couldn't, I would never know to go there.
Right. I do like the little tweak they do in those situations where you're trying to save the hostages, where they want you to sneak, is if you do get alerted, the guys just go, screw it, we're just running straight towards the hostage to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
But the game is, I think, a little lenient on that situation. They stand in front of that hostage forever.
They give you a long time.
They finally kill him.
They made it manageable. They made it so that only one enemy tries to kill a hostage at a time. Mm-hmm. And they put a little icon over each of them. They put a little shield icon over the hostage and a little like warning icon over the guy to tell you like, this guy is coming to kill the hostage right now. Don't miss out on this and fail the mission. So yeah, and he does give you like a minute before he strikes. So
yeah, I sat there and killed everybody but the one person and just watched for a minute.
I've had a hostage die on me a few times.
I did early on when I didn't realize that was what was going on, but I do wish that if they wanted you to be more stealthy like that, it's like tighten that up a little bit.
Well, it's happened to me once that I was like trying to fight my way to the guy before he would execute the hostage, and I was like a second too late, and it's like, no. So it can be dramatic when the timing works out. But yeah, it is pretty lenient, which, again, I'm not going to complain about that being lenient because, you know, having to protect the hostage and then losing because the hostage was killed is one of the most annoying game mechanics out there. So I'm glad they say, you know, like, hey, we're going to make this as, like, unfrustrating as possible for you. Generally, it seems like this game has really smoothed out the rough edges on a lot of, for as much as I was just complaining about how terrible the camera was, with a lot of, like, with stealth, you know, the tools it gives you, like, everything about the way it plays, it feels very kind of smooth and easy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've got your wind chimes to attract enemies, the black powder bombs, the kunai, the throwing knives work really well for killing dudes. Later on, you unlock some other tools I won't get into yet that are really helpful, but are also will be familiar to fans of the Assassin's Creed games. Let's say there have been similar weapons in Assassin's Creed, and the tactics basically work the same way, but it's like a smoother, nicer, more user-friendly is probably the word I should say. Like stuff like, we're going to put big icons over the thing that you need to be paying attention right now, so you absolutely don't miss that this guy is about to die, I think is really nice.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, eventually you get chain assassinations, and those are really useful. Assassinating people is really good. You know, it's typical. You sneak up to them, you hit square, there's a little animation, and then they're dead. Pretty straightforward.
I have to admit, I've yet to do a chain assassination, because I keep forgetting that's a thing. The moment I sneak up to somebody, I just hit square, and there's a lot of times where it'll prop up both prompts, and I hit square and go, oh man, that was my chance. I want to see what that does still.
I did that like 3 or 4 times in a row after I first got that. And then eventually I remembered to press triangle. But yeah, I wish you could just start the assassination normally and then decide to follow up after the first animation is done. That would make it even simpler. But yeah, it's a good tool set, and you know, they make it very easy for you. They show you way more in terms of hints and the environment than most games.
So I will say, as far as like the collectibles and stuff in this game go, I like that there's a variety of things that you have to do. There's only like one, or we got records. You got the
Mongol artifacts.
The artifacts and the banners. But most of the banners are like stuck in big camps anyways. But those are the only 3 that you just go around and collect. Everything else has something that you have to do around it, and I like that. Right,
it's your side activities, right? So you've got your fox dens, which are pretty neat. You find a little fox at like a tree. There's these glowy trees that have what do you call those glowy flies?
Fireflies?
Fireflies, thank you. Yes, from
we just
off the Last of Us fame. So yeah, there's a glowy tree surrounded by fireflies, and you find a little wolf at the foot of it, and the wolf looks at you, and then he starts running, and you chase after the wolf, and you chase him through fields and around corners and over mountains, and eventually he'll lead you to a little shrine. And then you'll pray at that shrine, and then you'll pet the wolf, and it's the most adorable thing ever.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
I love the fox dens. Every fox den to me was like a little joy.
Did you ever find the shrine before the fox den?
The shrine before the fox den.
Yeah. Did you ever find a shrine without having to follow the fox?
I think once, but I didn't. I think I just thought it was background.
I was doing a different side mission and looked over, and we're like. It said hit R2, and I did. All of a sudden, the fox showed up. I was like, oh, crap. Okay, this is what we're doing. Oh, cool.
Yeah, that has not happened to me.
I felt so smart.
Neat. Yeah, I feel dumb because I think I came across one of them and didn't interact with it and just ran past it, and then later I came back there and I was like, oh, that's what this is. But yeah, so fox dens, and there's like one that's a little challenging where you have to chase the fox through a field where you lose visibility with the fox, and you kind of have to trace his movement by tracing the movement of the wheat or whatever it is. And that was the only one. That's like one I restarted a couple of times because I lost track of the fox. But the only other thing that'll really derail you from these is if there's a random Mongol encounter in the middle.
Yes.
It's so annoying. Or it's like, I'm chasing this fox and suddenly it's like, standoff. It's like, no, I don't want to. And it's like, suddenly you're in combat. You can't interact with the fox anymore. It's like, damn it. I was halfway to this stupid shrine.
Those are my favorite kills, though, because I just get really mad. Like, listen, I'm on this nice little adventure with this cute fox. You guys are over here just causing havoc.
Assholes. They deserve what they get, those Mongols.
Mm-hmm. And then I have to go find a haiku spot because I need to calm down.
Yes. Did you enjoy composing the haikus?
No, I don't. No. I really don't. I've gotten really bad at just picking the first options.
So you just pick whatever you scroll over first because it's so long to scroll. So what this is it's basically like the serene little view of nature with 3 little highlighted spots, and you move the camera until one of those spots becomes selected, and it'll have a haiku line, and then you'll confirm it, and that'll become a line in your poem, and then you do the next one, you do 3 of them, and then he's got a complete haiku that he's going to read out.
I forget which review video I was watching, but they said that they took some of their haikus that they made in this game and took them to an actual haiku person, and they were not impressed by the haikus.
I also was not impressed by the haikus.
they just, I mean, I'm very glad that they tried something different, so I'm not going to knock them that much, but I just didn't find any of them interesting.
Well, the problem with them is that they have to be written in a very generic way so that they you can mix and match them.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that selecting one doesn't give you 3 different options than selecting another one does. It's always the same 3.
You want way more branching.
Yeah.
Oh man, they could have really overwritten this and just made huge branches of possible haikus.
Then don't do 3. Just pick one or the other, and then you don't have to do 2.
Fair enough. Yeah. So you would branch from 2 to 4 to 8. So you need to write, let's see, 12, you need to write 16 different lines for each haiku.
That's okay. They wrote 9.
True. Okay, so we've got the haikus. I really enjoyed haikus at first, and then eventually I got super bored of them, and I also did what you start doing now. Bamboo strikes.
Loved them.
They're good. There are a couple of them where I got pretty angry, but
they make it's a lot like I haven't played a lot of it yet. If you ever listen to Video Games to the Max, where I'm on sometimes, when I've talked about Doom Eternal, I've only played a little bit of it, but it reminds me of Doom Eternal, where it just wants you to do finger gymnastics that sometimes my brain just doesn't want to do.
I'm really bad at that. That's also why I don't really play fighting games. I'm not good at doing these complex combos. Yakuza is about the level of combo I'm comfortable with, and anything more complex than that. And this one, at least they put it on the screen, so that helps. Yeah. So because
the issue is they don't give you a lot of time on those.
They're super fast. So that's like the thing. You have to press, L1, square, square, L1, circle, circle, L1, square, square in like 2 seconds. It is ridiculous how quick the timing is. So
but I love them.
It is
I like the challenge of them.
I mostly enjoyed them. As I said, there were like 2 of them where I said, screw you, game. But I did do them because, again, I had to 100% the game. And then we come to kind of the biggest thing, the most Assassin's Creed-y thing in the game is the shrines.
They remind me of Uncharted. This was the Uncharted part of the game for me.
Okay. The climbing is, I should also mention, the climbing in this game is kind of like Infamous, where once you've got a handhold on a ledge, you can just push the stick in the direction you want to go.
And it's smooth. I liked it.
Yeah. They feel pretty good. It's basically just environmental traversal. You got to climb a mountain to get to a shrine that's otherwise inaccessible, and then you get a charm, which bestows some kind of stat bonus on you.
We haven't talked about the charms yet.
They're amulets.
Did you mess with them? There's so many in this game.
Well, there are a couple that are just super used. There's 2 different categories. There's like the general ones, and then there's like the really good ones, the gold ones. And you can only equip 2 of the gold ones. So that kind of limits you to what you pick in But yeah, there's, they do things like they boost vitality, or they make it less likely to be hit by arrows, or, they get you more loot, or, any kind of thing. And eventually you get some really useful ones. And, at first, when you do fox dens, you unlock slots, which, you can equip more shrines. And then once you've got, all the slots, you then start, getting more power. And actually the very last fox den, that's a really, really powerful. You get a charm at the end of all the fox dens, and it's really good.
Good, because I like going after the foxes. So
I suggest doing the fox dens because that's a useful charm for the finale of the game for sure. Yeah, I like them. I mean, they're power ups. They're like amulets or any kind of stat boosting jewelry in an RPG.
I do like that once you get them all unlocked. There's 7 of them.
There's 6 slots, I think.
There's 6 slots, but still, there's a lot of customization in there.
Yeah,
but I seem to, other than the top 2 ones, like the 4 middle ones, I rarely change. I have them to take less damage and boost this, and I'm like, it's good. I'm good here.
Well, there's some that, like, now that I have them, I just can't give them up. So,
right, yeah.
I got to the point where I wasn't switching out charms very much anymore. It's just a matter of you just want to optimize it. If you get a better charm than what you've got equipped, you equip that charm.
And I'm probably happy with that because it does get tedious enough just to switch out your outfit. Like, could you imagine there's a different kind of fighting section. There's like, I have to change my totems for this now, and then this kind of battle uses these 3 charms would be great. That would get too much for me. So I'm glad they didn't really do that.
So I guess we've covered pretty much all the side stuff that you do in this game. The main quests, we've got Jin's storyline, which is the main quest line, which are all the missions you do to actually finish the game. Then you've got the Mystic quests, which are kind of like what tombs are in Assassin's Creed, where they give, it's like getting armor or techniques by doing a bunch of puzzle-based things.
I love the way they tell the story in those.
Yeah, so you find a bard, and that bard tells you a tale in music and rhyme, and then you're going off to pursue that tale. And they're actually pretty varied. At first I thought it was going to be, because the first one I did, I don't know which one you did first. Did you do Tokuyama's Grave first?
Oh.
That's the first one I did, and that was one where it was doing a landmark puzzle, where it showed you kind of a limited, a fraction of a map with a certain kind of flower, where it says like blue flowers grow in this area, in this mountain region. And then
that's the one I'm doing right now. That's the one that's the one I'm at on my save right now.
Gotcha.
Just doing the blue flower.
Yeah. So that's like the first one I did, and that reminded me of Infamous, because Infamous has a similar thing where it's like you're in the park and you've got to find the package, and you do it by. Does Spider-Man do this also, where you've got like an image that's basically like a landmark?
And you have to get into that right spot. Yeah. Infamous Second Son, I know, we get to stand in the right spot where, and Watch Dogs did it too, where if you stand in the right spot, the graffiti on like 5 different buildings all of a sudden would line up.
Right.
I remember that one. But my very first one I'm now remembering was very similar to that. You got a map of like, by this tree, over here is a cave and that kind of stuff. So that was the first one I did.
So yeah, that's pretty good. And I thought that they were all going to be like that. I was like, okay, this is the formula for what these Mystic quests are. But then actually that turned out not to be true. And like some Mystic quests are more like regular quests. And some have like duels and kind of combat set pieces and stuff in them. So I was actually pleasantly surprised by the amount of variety that you get in the Mystic Quest. But they all have some kind of puzzle element, or some kind of challenge element, and you get equipment or combat technique out of them. And then you've got the Tales of Tsushima, which are the side quests, which are kind of broken out into the general standalone stories, and then quest lines for your companions. That you get throughout the game, which are numbered, which is also very helpful, right? So you get like, you're in part 6 of 9 for, Lady, what's her name? Lady Masako, whatever, right? So that's all well and good. The quests themselves, it's pretty much what you expect. Go here, kill some dudes, pick up a thing. Sometimes you've got to track enemies, and this is, yeah.
How do you feel about tracking?
It's a lot like The Witcher 3.
It has gotten so old to me.
Yeah.
I think they overuse tracking in this game, especially on these side quests.
You do it a lot.
Oh man! Again, right before we got on, I was cleaning up a couple of the side quests because at first Jens told me he beat the game. I'm like, crap! I gotta hurry so I can just do this all in one podcast.
Good luck.
So I started just pushing through the main story, and I'm near the end of Act 2 as far as the main story. But my second section of my map looks so sad. There's so many question marks. So then he's like, no, take your time. We'll just do Act 1 for the podcast. I'm like, all right. So I've gone back and was doing everything. So I had a couple of the Masako and Ishikawa story missions to do down there still. So I did like 4 or 5 of them in a row, and every single one was, okay, track these footsteps. Yep. I don't want to do it again.
Yeah. So you do a lot of the same. Sometimes you take a fort as part of a main or a side quest, and sometimes it's a tutorial mission for one of the new equipment pieces you're getting. So at some point you get a thing that lets you climb stuff, or you get your first turret that you use, your first turret sequence and stuff like that. So occasionally there's like gimmicks, but mostly it's all the same ingredients as everything else. Maybe the biggest, I feel like the most unique kind of big set pieces are like the opening on Kodama Beach and the big finales at the various, the final forts. Yeah, it's kind of the really unique set pieces that also get cutscenes and stuff. So, should we talk more about the story?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Well, I mean, I mentioned Kodama Beach. We start on Kodama Beach. It's a Mongol invasion for some reason in like the 16th century when there was no Mongol invasion at any point. But we gotta, and this goes back to my complaint about like, this isn't Kurosawa-like. There's no Mongols in Kurosawa movies because he mostly covers the Warring States period, and there were no Mongols then. But we're in fantasy Japan, and the Mongols invade. And that opening, I don't know if you've ever played the game Rise.
I have not. I remember you saying this, but I have not played that.
I was really reminded of Rise, like that whole beach storming set piece at the beginning, and like everyone's shiny armor, and the way that the combat felt in the very beginning of the game before you had unlocked anything, where it was just like tutorially. It reminded me so much of the opening beach sequence in Rise, Son of Rome. And, then all the samurai get slaughtered by the Mongols, and we get our big appearance of our main big bad, who's a descendant of Genghis Khan. For some reason, I have not written down his name.
Oh, I can't even think of it either.
Just a second. I'm just going to Google it.
Professionalism.
Exactly.
I have to say, Jens takes the greatest notes, by the way. He just missed this one thing. I won't be mad at him.
Yeah, well, if I didn't, I would not be capable of doing a good job on these shows. Kuton Khan.
Oh, yeah, Khan. That's right.
Well, of course, his last name is Khan. This is a Genghis Khan descendant. But how do we feel about Kuton Khan, and especially how he compares to Shiwan Khan from The Shadow?
The Shadow?
You've never seen The Shadow?
I've never seen The Shadow.
Oh my God! So that has a descendant of that has a Khan in it.
Yeah.
It's gonna.
I will say, as far as this Khan goes, I mean, obviously he's an asshole, but I like this character and the way they portray him, and the way in the first act he's really kind of poking fun at the uncle, and it's like, I've been hearing rumors that your nephew is doing things not the samurai way, but we're gonna find him and we'll take care of him for you. I like that. I like the way he interacts with the uncle.
I really loved him in the beginning when at the beach he gives this great speech, this like villain introduction speech, where he says something like, "While you have been training, I have been reading. I've been learning your language. I've been learning all about you. I've been learning how you think. And that is why I'm victorious, is because I know my enemy." And it's really good. It kind of sets him up. He's a big barbarian type brute character, but he's also set up as being cunning and intelligent and learned. Yes. And I wish I had been able to stick with that tone, because you're right. The needling in the beginning, I think, is kind of fun, but eventually the scenes with Khan to me get extremely repetitive, where it's always the exact same conversation.
That's disappointing.
Like I heard that Jin has been acting very dishonorably lately.
I love it.
Perhaps
that scene.
We are not so different, you and I. And it gets tiresome to me. And his whole end game is that anybody that he meets, any of the main characters he meets, whether it's your uncle, or what's his face? Shin.
Are you talking about his old friend?
No, that's Ryuichi or whatever.
Yeah,
Rizo, sorry. Shimura, Lord Shimura. He's trying to convince Lord Shimura to support him. Like, join me and we'll fight the mainland together for some reason. And then later he does it to a variety of other characters, and it's always the same, if only you could understand that it is to your benefit to join the Mongols. If only I could bring you over to my side. If only your son weren't so dishonorable. He becomes very one note to me.
And I think that says a lot about most of the characters in this game. Is most of them feel pretty one note.
Well, everybody has kind of their one thing, right? So we've got Rizo, who you just mentioned. Rizo is a childhood friend of Jin's, who at one point they had a falling out over some duel, and he's now become a leader of the Straw Hats, along with Monkey D. Luffy and Nami and Zoro and Brook and Tony Chopper and Frankie and Usopp and Sanji and Nico Robin. The whole gang is here, but they're all starving. They're all starving, so all these missions kind of revolve around, we've got to get food for the Straw Hats. And Jin absolutely goes, like, above and beyond. He goes out of his way to make this happen. They take a Mongol supply camp, they take a Mongol supply ship, but it's all for naught. The ship gets blown up, and you come back empty-handed. And that Rizo then seems to see it as some kind of betrayal, and as a result goes to the Mongols. That Jin, he's so useless getting food from my men. I guess that means I've got to sell him out now.
Yeah, it's all about food. That's his one note, is whatever will get my men food. That's all I care.
Yep, so that's Rizo's thing, is food. Then we've got the sensei, Ishikawa. He's the archery teacher. And one of the first people you recruit. I should say, so it's funny with Jin, because he's left for dead on the beach. And then Yuna shows up, who's a thief, and kind of your main companion throughout the main quest line in the first arc. And her thing is all about, she wants to save her brother and get his brother off the island. So her brother's a blacksmith, he's in Mogul captivity, and you've got to break him free, and then you've got to help them get back to the mainland so they can start a new life. Presumably a Mongol-free life. And that's her whole thing. And she agrees to help you if you help her brother, the blacksmith, who also might craft some stuff for you that'll be helpful to mount the walls of the castle. So that's her thing.
Yeah, and her brother is all about, I want to prove myself.
Yes.
It's over and over. It's like, how many missions in Act 1 after you save Taka, you're like, okay, we're going here. Taka, what are you doing here? Yep. I want to help. No, don't help. Just stop it. Just sit over there.
Well, Taka's whole thing, Yuna thinks that Taka is weak or that she must protect him. He's a pacifist. He can't fight. She thinks he wouldn't survive if she wasn't there to keep him out of trouble. But he really starts to idolize Jin after Jin rescues him. And that's when he gets this bug that, like, he has to prove himself in battle. He has to support Jin in battle. Which, even though, wouldn't he be way better if he were just in his blacksmithery making sweet gear for you?
Yes.
Like, just make sweet gear for me, Taka. You can be useful in everybody's got their skills. You're a blacksmith. Make me a Buster Sword or make me some custom shit. Anyway. But yeah, predictably, Taka gets himself killed by the Khan, which is great,
It's a good scene.
During one of the several times that you're captured by the enemy, at this point, the Khan makes a plea to, like, won't you join me? We're not so different, you and I. And then when Jin won't join or surrender, Khan kills Taka to make an example of him.
I think that was the most powerful scene for me. I think that they did that really well, especially when Yuna shows up. I thought that was a good scene. Well,
your whole point there. I mean, firstly, Jin's expression is great. He's got a good look of anguish and remorse on his face. The faces in general. I mean, we know how good Sucker Punch faces are from Infamous. So everybody looks really good.
So I have to admit something. Until you get to a point where you get a family member's armor in Act 2, which I won't spoil at this point. It's just so wherever people are in that part of the game. I I collected a straw hat, not from the one that you get from Rizzo, but the straw hat that just this just giant straw hat thing that you get.
Yeah,
I've
like
worn
out of
that.
the Ninja Scroll straw hat.
Yeah, I've worn it the entire game.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Until Act 2, I've never seen Jin's face. Because he wears it in the cutscenes and stuff. So it's just so hilarious. There was like, somebody will mention about Jin's face or something. It's like, how do you even know that's Jin?
This is why I did not wear a giant hat.
I loved it. I had so much fun with it.
In cutscenes, they take the mask off automatically. So you'll wear the mask in gameplay.
They take the mask off. They don't take the hat off.
Well, no.
So you still can't see it.
So I like to use the refined samurai, the main samurai helmet, the one that gets a giant golden half moon crest on top of it once you level it up all the way. That armor looks awesome. So that's kind of my favorite hat. And then I like wearing the traveler's armor in white. There's a white dye merchant that you find.
I do the same thing.
And it looks really rad.
Especially when you use it in combat and it turns it red for a while.
Oh yeah, there's good blood splatter.
Yes.
But yeah, the faces look really good. So that's a nice emotional moment. I was just more thinking like, man, Yuma's gonna be mad.
Well, we'll be talking about that at the next one for sure.
Yeah.
I'm curious how the rest of this game goes.
Which we haven't really talked about. Since we're just talking about faces, do you want to talk about the visuals in this game?
Yes.
Holy shit.
Amazing.
Holy shit. One of the most beautiful PS4 games I've seen.
How many times have you just walking around to your next objective, just set the controller down? It's like, especially, they do such a good job, especially like after missions and stuff. I forget even it was in Act 1, but there's a point where you finish it and they're kind of showing you've liberated a spot. So now they're showing people back in it. And I don't know if they meant to, but they showed this camera angle where you just saw this giant stone pillar. Mm-hmm. But behind the pillar were two people fishing. So all you saw was the pillar, and then the two fishing rods were hanging out of it like little arms. And I spent 5 minutes finding that spot and recreating that exact angle.
Nice.
But no, like the flowers in this game are absolutely stunning. I mean, the water in the game is great.
The dynamic weather system blows my mind. Mm-hmm. Like the world feels so alive. There's animation everywhere. Every bit of every plant moves in the wind. There's constant particle effects, like petals flying around you, falling, and snow blowing all around you later on. You know, the lighting system. You'll see, like, you know, it's that, and they do great things with the cinematography, especially during, you know, when you're doing certain quests. It will dynamically adjust the weather for the quest to make the quest as dramatic as possible. So there's like one shrine I did where, you know, it was in the middle of a lightning storm and it turned dark and you were just climbing around the mountain just illuminated by the lightning strikes. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as you reach the top and you pray at the shrine, like the weather clears up and you just see like the rays of light starting to come through the clouds and the camera pulls back and there's just this field of flowers just, you know, glowing in the morning light.
Yeah. Like you said, atmosphere, sound, music. Does a fantastic job. Yeah, and to do all of that with how amazing it looks and to have basically no load times.
Very little.
It's and the fact that they came out and said we actually had to extend the load times because we wanted you guys to be able to get hints. It's just
that's funny.
So amazing.
I don't know if I believe that, but that's hilarious if true. There are
I think it was IGN Game Scoop that talked about it, but one of them said that they went from the very tip of the island down to the other tip. Said it took them a half hour. Mm-hmm. The place is pretty big for just being an island.
Yeah, it's a huge world. Mm-hmm. There's also that black and white. I mean, in the framing, especially, that's like the one place where they get the Kurosawa thing across is the look. Like they do a really good shot of like doing his shots. Like in duels, it'll do, you know, the close-ups on the weapons and it'll do the long shot and it'll do the, you know, over the shoulder. And it does kind of all the iconic like shots that you know from those films. So even though the story is nothing like one of them, I guess it really is just the visual style.
Yeah. And the fact that you can play this entire game in black and white in Japanese to really drive that home. I didn't play that way, but
there are two issues to me with that. I think it's a cool feature too. But I just love the color in this game so much. The color is so vibrant and beautiful. It's like the most attractive feature of the graphics. So you're turning off like the prettiest thing in it.
Right.
Like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. You're missing out on how pretty
I
the
think
game is.
it's one of those you check out after the fact just to kind of see what that would be like. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
The one disappointing thing about the Japanese voice.
Yeah, I'm not playing it that way. But yeah, it's so the colors stand out so much in this game.
They don't do the lip sync for the Japanese.
I heard about that. I'm glad I played it in English.
It just looks off. So I switched it back. Even though I wanted to actually, I don't really like the English voices that much because they're doing like a slight inflection. It's like you're doing a Japanese accent or something, and it's weird. It's the same. Like, you don't have to do that, just do I actually think The Hunt for Red October did it best, where they did like the first 5 minutes of the movie in Russian, and then it just switches over and everybody's using their normal voices because you understand that it is taking place in Russian. And you don't need you don't need to do, K-19, the Widowmaker, where Harrison Ford is doing a Russian accent. But it's just kind of it's a weird like attribute of, I grew up on dubbed movies because I grew up in Germany. And people are normally just dubbed into neutral voices. But most movies I've seen dubbed into English try to do some kind of regional accenting, which always strikes me as silly. Like, you watch the English dub of Life is Beautiful, and everybody sounds like Mario.
I think Americans just try to want to be authentic with it, but you're right. It never comes off right.
Yeah, so I didn't like that part. Like, for comparison, the game that we're about to play, Judgment, has an English dub, and it's amazing, where they just got people who sounded like as close to the Japanese voice actors as they possibly could, and they just do it completely straight in the same tone. And it's just kind of the hard-boiled noir kind of style of dialogue.
I'm going to go on a complete tangent, because it just popped into my head, but because I usually don't do that kind of stuff, as far as the dubs and subs and stuff, but I was a big Dragon Ball fan when I was growing up. So when they started coming out with those box sets, like a decade ago or whatever, so you get the different seasons. My favorite thing to do on those was to turn on Japanese subtitles while listening to English.
That's hilarious.
Or do it the exact opposite, because you learn really quick that the English version of Dragon Ball, that realize that English kids just cannot have blank spaces. Like the very first episode of Dragon Ball Z, like the English version, Gohan talks throughout his whole adventure, and I had the Japanese subtitles on, and nothing was popping up. I thought it was broken. It's just, on the Japanese version, they just didn't say anything. So it's really funny to see how English will translate things and stuff. And I'm really disappointed to hear that Ghost of Tsushima doesn't have the two versions, at least, where the Mauser moves with each way. So that's a little disappointing.
Yeah, it just bothers me to look at. So I said, well, all right, I'll deal with the English voices, even though I would love to just pretend, because I think it would make the dialogue more palpable also. Because again, it's so earnest and straightforward, and everybody just kind of says what they means most of the time, unless they're a liar and a traitor. That it might come across better in Japanese with subtitles to me than in English, where it just feels a little stilted, maybe? I don't know how to explain it, but I think more tolerant of that when it's a foreign language. You kind of give it the benefit of the doubt more than when it's English. As far as how the writing is, You just say, oh, there's, when I play anything in Japanese and the subtitle is dumb, I just think, that probably made a lot more sense in Japanese.
Probably.
So, I don't have that. It doesn't have that excuse.
Yeah, because like you said, especially it's usually they're trying to match the mouth moving, and now it's the exact opposite for this. So
yeah,
that's a little disappointing. But again, so far from when I played this game, I'm probably halfway through altogether, maybe a little bit farther. It's very enjoyable, but it is starting to get that open world feel of, okay, I've done this 30 times already. Okay, let's move it on.
Yeah. But we've still got so we've got the main story, of which we've talked about some. So basically the goal of the main story at this point is that Jin is organizing, with Jin and Yuna together are organizing this campaign to strike back against the Mongols and retake the castle Kaneda and free Lord Shimura, Jin's uncle. And in order to do that, Jin has got to recruit various people and also learn that honor isn't everything. And other such life lessons that actually the number one life lesson he learns is it's usually bandits. That is the through line of all the random side quests, or almost all the random side quests, where it's just, we have heard that there are demons prowling the woods. That's probably bandits. You go, and it's bandits, and you kill them. Yeah. You go back, yep, it was bandits. I killed them. Or, it usually is just like, this guy trusted some bandits, and he shouldn't have. He was trying to buy passage for his wife and daughter to get off the island from some bandits, and then the bandits just killed them. Goes to show you, don't trust bandits. This woman was in love with a bandit, and they were going to elope, but instead he killed her family, and then she drowned herself. Goes to show, don't trust bandits. Except for occasional, there was one group of bandits that turned out that you thought was stealing artifacts, and they turned out to be saving artifacts. They're like, we just want to keep these artifacts safe from the Mongols. And Jin is just like, yep, that checks out.
So I like that mission because you get to one of the towns and they're like, well, we're not letting bandits in. They're with me. Oh, okay.
I trust them. I've known them for the last 3 minutes. And they seem okay.
It's a lot like Leon and Ada in Resident Evil 2.
Well, they know that they're good because they're main characters.
Yes.
The same thing happens in Resident Evil 6 like 4 times.
I'll have to do that one of these times just to make my head hurt.
Okay, I torture you?
Yeah.
Well, I've played through that game enough now that I think it'd be fairly painless because, once I know what to do.
You're numb to it.
And I've got all the weapon unlocks. I've got the infinite ammo and stuff. So yeah, that's the story. Let's see, who else do we have with you? You've got Sensei Ishikawa, who I was starting to talk about earlier and then abandoned. The archery teacher. His storyline is kind of interesting. You're like
Tomei. You're Tomei. You just abandoned him. Way to go. Jeez.
It's true. I'm exactly like Tomei. Actually, but I'm not collaborating with the Mongols. I'm not training the Mongols the way of the bow. That is outrageous. She must have a good reason for that, right? What do you think? What do you think happened?
I don't really trust him.
That's the thing. Yeah. So, yeah, he's the archer teacher. What you learn over the course of this thing is that he had a student that he trained in the way of the bow, and then that student became a crazy murderer, and then he swore off the way of the bow and didn't teach it to anybody for years. And then this woman, Tomoe, shows up at his door and does the classic anime thing of, Sensei, I'm not leaving until you teach me. Mm-hmm. And eventually he relents and teaches her. And then, as soon as he's taught her, she leaves and joins the Mongols and starts teaching the Mongols. And now he's going to track her down and kill her. Does this sound like a storyline that makes sense on its face, or is there something up with this guy?
That's how I feel right now. He's the one side mission I was just finishing up before we started, as far as the first area goes. And I don't trust this dude at all. And I'm very curious where it ends up. I'm sure you know, because you beat it.
Yes.
But I don't yet. But I don't trust him at all.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil too much about these side quests. I'm just going to say most of these side quests are way more straightforward than you expect.
Probably. Like this whole game.
Yeah, when the resolution comes, you'll be like, huh. So you think there's got to be some falling out between them, right? Like maybe she's got a connection with his former student. Like my theory early on was that his previous student had killed her family, and she's taking revenge for the fact that he taught him. Or something. But, I mean, that's kind of a roundabout. Or they had some, I mean, you figure they must have had some terrible falling out where Ishikawa did something to her that she is avenging. Right?
You'd hope they would get in depth like that. Maybe she's the daughter of the former student.
Oh, that also. Yeah, they could be setting up anyway, at the moment it seems like they're setting up all sorts of possibly interesting things with that quest line. So that was kind of interesting. And then we've got the Tale of Lady Masako, which is also kind of interesting. She's another big ally of yours. She's this matriarch of the Adachi clan and also the last surviving member of the Adachi clan, which is a clan, like an old noble clan you learn of that were betrayed and ruthlessly murdered during this Mongol invasion. And you think, okay, at first you think it's Mongols, but then you help Masako track down the people responsible, and they are not Mongols, but they all seem to have some kind of personal connection with her. and they were using the Mongol invasion as kind of a cover. Like, this is the ideal, there's chaos everywhere. This is the ideal situation, the ideal moment to strike and finally execute their revenge on the Adachi clan. So you spend much of this quest line with Jin just kind of standing idly by while Masako murders suspect after suspect without ever extracting any info from them. And then Jin chides her. You shouldn't have killed that guy. He had information, probably. I'll still come with you to the next guy.
I'll meet you over here.
Don't you kill him this time. Oh, you killed him again. I can't leave you alone for a second.
That Masako, you can never...
So you just okay, so does Masako just have terrible impulse control, or is she trying to cover up something?
Oh, I think she's covering up. To me, again, just coming off Last of Us, she reminds me of Joel. As far as, she's got past. She doesn't want you to know about it. She doesn't want anybody to know about it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, so that's a promising storyline. And then we've got Kenji, the sake merchant. I like Kenji a lot.
He's the comedy relief that I wish there was more of in this game.
Yes, he has 3 freaking quests. 3. And they're all kind of the same running gag. I mean, I guess in comedy, rule of threes, it makes sense. Mm-hmm. But it's just, he gets himself into increasingly dumb situations as a result of being a scoundrel. Like, he just keeps trying to trick people.
he keeps getting in a tight spot, and to fix it, he puts Jin in a tight spot.
Yeah.
So get in the barrel.
Well, that was helping you out to sneak into a Mongol base. That was actually the most useful I think he is in the entire story, is when you get in the barrel. But later, it usually is him coming up to you and saying, oh, these Mongols took prisoners in this village, which I've been helping. Why don't you free the prisoners? And then it turns out that he sold the Mongols a bunch of goods and then stole them back or something, or never delivered.
Right. I gave the Mongols food, but then they realized that it was wood chips.
That's right, exactly.
And they came in, they killed all the people. I never thought, well, did you think they would find out? Not so fast.
That's our Kenji.
Mm-hmm. I love him. He's great.
So yeah, so he just gets himself into increasingly absurd scrapes through his own dumb schemes, his get-rich-quick schemes, and you've got to bail him out. And he lies to you about why you're bailing him out. That's kind of, they all follow the same comedic construction, but I really like them. I could have had twice as many Kenji plot lines.
Would have been really good. Maybe maybe DLC. That'd be
great. Oh man! Imagine an epic here's 20 more hours of Ghost of Tsushima, and it's all Kenji centered. That could be a big add-on.
All right, let's do it. Come on, Sucker Punch.
So those are kind of our main quest lines that we're following in Act 1. And, the finale of Act 1 is what you would expect, which is we're going to attack that Castle Kaneda. We're going to scale the walls with the sweet new equipment that Taka made for us, and we're going to free our uncle. And who do we run into at the castle but our good friend Raizo?
He found food.
Yep.
I love that. I need food.
We'll duel for food.
You failed me, so now I'm still mad about that one time that you beat me in a tournament when I really needed to win. So he gave me food, so I'm going to kill you.
Raizo is so dumb. He's such an irritating character. I mean, think of everything he could have had. He would have gotten... Jin was going to get him stuff. He would have been in the in crowd if they had taken the castle together. I don't get it. He seems just so short-sighted.
He's he's very one-dimensional. Food.
Right, food now. Okay. So I'll betray my best friend so I can feed my men.
Yeah, you got food? I'm with you. Let's go.
Okay. So you got to fight your best friend, your childhood friend, and you almost kill each other, and then he escapes. And is this when... I forget. Maybe that's in Act... Oh, no, that's Act 2. Sorry, I'm thinking of the finale of Act 2 or something. I almost spoiled something.
Yeah,
Then I didn't.
That's exactly where I'm at as far as the main story goes, is the finale of Act 2. I'm just now doing all the other side stuff.
Right, yes. Got to do all the side stuff to see if these quests go anywhere, or if anything. Mm-hmm. What's your favorite side story you've done so far?
Oh, Kenji. Kenji's the best.
Any one of the 3?
Yeah, Kenji's my guy. I like those ones, but again, there's not as many of them. The Ishikawa one probably, I think, has been the most variety. Mm-hmm. As far as getting
What about
the fire arrows and stuff.
the totally random side ones?
God, I can't even remember. Nothing's coming to my head as far as my favorite. Do you got a favorite?
Probably the Laughing Bandits. The Laughing Bandits is the one about the young woman who was taken advantage of.
And then she drowned herself, right? Yeah.
She drowns herself before you can, when you come back to talk to her about it, she's drowned herself. And while, it's just kind of a good traditional, nice, tragic Japanese, feels like it could be like a Japanese folktale about, this woman who lost her family that way. And then, now she's a ghost haunting this lake or something. So I like that part of it, even though it falls squarely into the don't trust bandits category of quests.
Yes.
Yeah. But really most of them...
as far as that quest goes, all I remember of that, other than the ending, is go here, search camp, follow footprints, kill bandits, get end of story. And you do that a lot on those side quests.
Oh, there's one more ally that has got his own quest line, but there's just not that much to talk about with him, and that's Norio. Norio is the warrior monk.
You meet him. He's Act 2, right?
Oh, all right. Sorry. Okay, now I'm jumping.
I mean, just right at the beginning of it. I've only talked to him a little bit. You might meet him in Act 1, but
no, you're right. It's the very beginning of Act 2. Okay, yeah. All right. We'll save that. Not that there's that much to talk about again. But yes, that's kind of where we are with our story. We've saved our uncle, and our uncle had his talk with us where he said, "Well, it's a good thing you've done for Japan, son. I will write to the shogun and I'll put in the request to officially make you my son, so that you'll be my rightful heir, to reward you for, freeing me and all the slightly dishonorable stuff you've done. But just promise me you won't do any more dishonorable stuff." And that is kind of where we leave off.
Mm-hmm. I still think the story in this game is just, it's not his downfall, but it's the most disappointing part of this game.
I guess I was just like, they might as well have made the Japanese Klingons in this.
Yeah.
You could make a drinking game. If you made a drinking game out of taking a shot every time that the word honor is mentioned, or that the Bushido Code is referred to in some way. Though actually, I don't think even the Bushido Code does not have rules like you can't turn an enemy's weapon against them, or you can't use stealth. It's really more general about conducting yourself in a, honorable and honest way, and in a just way. Which, by the way, Bushido Code does not really... Bushido Code is kind of 18th century, so it gets retroactively applied to this era, but didn't really exist in a formalized way at this time. But everybody in this game acts like, the slightest underhanded tactic that you might use because you're one man fighting an entire army. If you do not walk up to the gate and say, "Entire army, come at me, bro," then that is dishonorable, apparently, in the eyes of these people.
Well, that's okay, because I'm not very dishonorable. I do that all the time. So that is Chapter 2 of this podcast, Part 1 of the Ghost of Tsushima deal. Jens, tell them where they can get a hold of you.
They can at me on Twitter at Aperture Silence. How about you, Randy?
You can get me. Mine's very boring. It's at Randy Isbell. And one of us needs to get on it. Maybe I'll do it while you're editing this. And we need a Twitter for this podcast alone. So I'll look to see if Chapter Select is available. So
that's a good idea.
Possibly at Chapter Select is where you'll be able to get a hold of the podcast. I've been lazy about it and haven't done it. Hopefully by the time this podcast comes out, it'll be up there.
Excellent. Thank you, Randy.
And again, this is a 2-week, or every 2 weeks we'll do a podcast talking about a game like this. Obviously, in 2 weeks, we'll be finishing up Ghost of Tsushima and finishing that story, so join us along with that. 2 weeks after that, we will be playing, I'm blanking on the name again.
Judgment.
I just know it's spelled wrong. But we're playing
Both
Judgment.
Spellings of Judgment are valid.
Judgment, which is a Yakuza series game, which Jens, ever since I met him, has been wanting me to get into this series. So he says this is a perfect way to get into it. So if you haven't played a Yakuza game like I haven't, he says that's the perfect game to get into. If you want to start that up, we will be doing that in 4 weeks' time.
I have played the first 5 hours or 6 hours of it, and I can confirm that there's no prior knowledge required.
Awesome. So that is what will be coming up. If you want to play along with us, and that's kind of the whole point of this, is just going to have a fun discussion and break down everything on one particular game and have a fun conversation. So again, thank you so much, Jens, for running it this week. And thank you, everybody who has made it this far. We appreciate you more than you know. And in 2 weeks, we will be right back here on Chapter Select to finish Ghost of Tsushima.